All right.
Oh shit.
This show just got a little better looking. I would say 10 times better looking. Powerful Jeremiah Lay. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you, buddy?
Good, good. So I've been digging your podcast, man, The Handsome Savage.
Thank you. Thank you. It's kind
Yeah.
of really unstructured, and it's just like all off the cuff. And people will call me out regularly on shit I say on there, which it's good. That's what I want, but
Sure.
I should probably read something before I keep talking.
No, man, I like it. It's really authentic. It's I told you the other day that I felt it was like Joe Rogan in his beginnings. It's really raw. You're not taking a stance that's PC. You're not saying what everybody wants to hear. You're just a dude that's just saying his point of view, right? And coming from the
Exactly.
Midwest, um, yeah, it's cool, man. It's refreshing. When I got on there, I was like, what's he going to say? And the first episode, I remember getting on a plane. I travel a lot for work. And I remember getting on a plane and I was just messaging you on Instagram. And I was like, what's the best one to jump in? If I was going to listen to your podcast, where do I jump in? You're like, I don't know, man. I just hit 5 and people seem to like it. So I was like, man, I'm going to listen to episode 5 then. No joke. I got on Southwest. That's where I was flying that day. And I downloaded 1 through 4 and just hit them all. I was like, dude, I like what this guy has to say. I agree with it. I have an 11-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old boy, a 3-year-old boy, and then a 1-year-old daughter. So I'm used to, like, I hear your struggle, and I'm like, God, my 11-year-old does that. Like the bus pass crap, right? Like, tell me before it expires that you need it renewed, right?
Dude, the dadding it's real. Okay, the struggle for dads is real, and over the last year, I've kind of been a single dad, so it's been me and the boys 24/7, and without like their mom around, I have to deal with all the problems, and you don't realize how much of that is dealt with by someone else when there's two parents in the household, and it's kind of opened my eyes a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it made me a better dad, but like, seriously, kid, you're killing me.
Yeah, right. I'm telling you, man. I'm doing it with 2, thankfully, right now. So I can't imagine doing it by myself, man. So hats off to you, literally.
Well,
it's a hard
it's all
job,
gonna
man.
come to an end. Their mom moves back in December, so
Okay.
it'll all go back to normal. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, until then, you held it down good.
I did my best.
Got some. You get to vent your frustrations on the podcast, though.
Hell yeah.
So, hey, man, I want to circle around to how I first met you. So, you had the dopest name on Twitter, and it was the Weeping Prophet.
Hell yeah.
No. I'm sorry. It was Gaelic Mohawk. Remember that?
Right, but I was also because you have on Twitter, you have your handle or your @ or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was Gaelic Mohawk, which is a reference to like. So my heritage is Irish, Scottish, and then Iroquois. Most likely Mohawk, because Iroquois Confederacy was a bunch of different tribes of Native Americans, and I can't like narrow it down to one. So that's where I got that, because Gaelic, Scottish, and then Mohawk. But the Weeping Prophet, in the Bible, Jeremiah is the Weeping Prophet because he basically just gets the shit kicked out of him over and over again. They like throw him in a well and shit. And he's just fucking crying all the time. He's kind of a pussy, but
dang, dude, that's awesome. I never knew. That's what I was gonna get with. Where did it all come from? So most of my family is from New York. Everybody but me. So when I say most of my family, 99.9% of them, and they're all Mohawk.
Oh, hell yeah.
Upstate New York. So I am not, though. My mother is Cherokee and was born in Oklahoma in Tahlequah. So I'm Cherokee. My whole life I was told that I was half Italian, half Irish. And that's just cut and dry. That's what I was.
Yeah.
And growing up in New York, because I was born in Tahlequah in January, but by March, I'd lived back in New York. I was an East Coast kid. And everybody would always be like, "Hey, he's half Italian, he's half Irish. Don't worry about it, right?
Don't forget about it.
Yeah, just forget about it. Don't worry what he is, And I was raised by only Italians. The Irish family was not around, so my traditions, my culture, the dialect, everything from a child is just all I got was the Italian side. So it's funny because I really like Robert De Niro. And he's half Italian, half Irish. And like all these people that I could relate to, I just gravitated to.
Oh, yeah.
And I did the 23andMe. I'm not half Italian, and I am
What?
not half Irish.
What?
I thought that, yeah. So like, I'm Spaniard, like from Spain.
All right.
So the Spain and Italian, Southern Italy mix was quite a bit. It was like 43%.
Oh,
But
that's a
then
lot.
I was, not only was I just Irish, I was also English and Scottish as well. And then, which was not quite 40%. It was like 38, and the rest was Cherokee. So it was like
Really?
14%. Yeah. So like,
Wow, dude. That's amazing. So it's funny that you bring up the not just Irish thing. So, like, you've seen Braveheart, right?
yeah.
So you know, like, that prima nocta shit where the English lords would come in and fuck newly married women on their wedding night. Like, that was
Yeah.
real. So what happened is you get a lot of English mixed in with the Scottish and Irish because of that.
Ah.
So pretty fucked up, but
Yeah,
it
right.
happened.
But that explains it. Because I had no idea that I was English. Like, none at
Oh, it's
all.
in there, bud.
Yeah,
The
it's in
English
there.
were everywhere, dude. They were a huge empire at one point, just everywhere, all over the globe.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Hey, to side note off that, I'm going to kind of try to cover a bunch of topics with you while I got you. I'm really interested with a lot of things you said. Uh, I'm not a small dude. And I know on your podcast, you're self-proclaimed small dude.
Yes.
I'm 6'3".
God
And
damn.
yeah, and I don't want to say I'm 300 right now, but I like to be about a cool 240. But I'm about
Big boy.
300 right now, and yeah. But my whole life, I got into martial arts, and I know, like you say, you hate when people are like, "Hey, you do jiu-jitsu?" I did jiu-jitsu, but I did it in my early 20s, like from 18. Before jiu-jitsu was cool, I was doing
Right.
jiu-jitsu. But by the time I was 25, I had fully stopped. So from like 18 to 25, I was doing Muay Thai twice a week, Jiu-Jitsu 3 nights a week. And I was going to Team Noguera in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is like the next big city.
Hell yeah,
And
dude.
then once that one went out, I went to Triton. And at the time, I wanted to do no-gi. And in hindsight, I wish I would have done gi. Like, if I could do it all over again, I would have done gi. But I got into it because the fear of getting beat up. And I didn't know that other men had, because we don't talk about that as men. We don't. We don't say,
Yes.
like, what is a big fear? A big fear of mine is somebody punching my face and not knowing what to do. Because if you get involved in the sport of martial arts and you become a fan, you realize the chances of a one punch knockout, like in a bar, I'll knock that dude out. I'll knock that dude. Like, it's really hard to knock that dude out.
Yes.
Like
It's
Chuck
very
Liddell, Chuck Liddell had a hard time doing it, and the dude hits like in his prime was like a ton of bricks.
It was a Mack
It doesn't,
truck.
yeah, absolutely, it doesn't happen that easy. And when I realized, like, oh, Chuck ain't smoking nobody with one punch, because this 2005, Chuck was not smoking people with one punch. He's putting them to sleep.
Yep.
But with a lot of setups, a lot of counters, and eating some as well. You talked about that on a podcast about fear. Why do you still do jiu-jitsu at 34? I think you are.
Yes,
I'm 35. And why do you still do it? And you're like, the fear. I have the fear. Like, I don't ever want to be compromised. And to hear you talk like that's a Joe Rogan quality that I was talking about. The authenticity of yourself. You're not trying to say you're a purple belt, right? From what I see.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, okay.
You're working for that brown.
You're going to fold me into a pretzel right now. I don't care how big you are. You're going to wrap me up and choke me and hurt me. And that's the thing that people don't realize. If people saw a man with my stature versus a man next to your stature, they're automatically going to think that I'm going to know what to do. Because I'm big. It doesn't work that way. So I'll tell you a real fun story, and then I want you to tell me a story, just a wrestling story or a jiu-jitsu story or how you got into it or why. But here's a story that's true. I went to Team Noguera Jiu-Jitsu. I was 22 years old. I go in there, and there was this nerdy kid. I didn't used to have these. I didn't used to have glasses. When I turned 30, I had to get them. But there was this kid. We're going to say he was nerdy, okay? We're just going to say he's nerdy. I was 22, and I was like, that kid gets picked on. I bet he's in here to reverse bully, right? Yes. He's not going to play the fool for very long. Good for him. They pair me up with him. Now, I've done a lot of jiu-jitsu up to this moment. I see this kid. He's smaller than me. He's probably 16, and he grins at me.
Oh, no.
Like, what's this kid grinning at, right?
Oh,
this kid tapped me out. I'm not kidding. tapped me out probably 30 times in our 10 minutes of freestyle rolling. Just because it was like at the end. Everything he did worked. And then he would start telling me, here's how he emasculated me. He would start saying, Jeremiah, I'm going to work into side control, and I'm going to attack your left arm for a Kimura. Just prepare for that. That's all I want you to do. Don't let me sweep. Don't let me set the position. And don't let me get it, okay? Gotcha. It was 10 seconds later. I'm like
that didn't work.
At all. And he was 16, and I remember being like, this crap. If I was 16 and I saw that kid in class, I would have picked on him. Because I was not a nice kid. I would have picked on him. I would have got stroked. Yeah. I don't know if the kid could punch, but he could have taken me down and wrapped me up. People don't realize how scary jiu-jitsu players really are. So tell me a story. Tell me a story why you got into it. What, wrestling or jiu-jitsu? Your choice. Tell me a story.
So I got into jiu-jitsu because I've been wrestling since I was 14. It's been a part of my life. So that's 20 years now. When I was in the service, I was stationed in New Mexico for a little while and made friends with this Samoan guy. His name is Chino. Well, that's what everybody calls him. His name's not really Chino, but we call him Chino. Big, just thick Samoan dude, but he's about my height. So he outweighs me by maybe 80 pounds. He's 220, 240.
And where are you at height-wise? Where are you standing?
I'm 5'6", 5'7".
Okay, yeah. All right.
And I walk around at about 160. So he's like 240, somewhere in there. And he found out that I had wrestled through the course of us just becoming like BFFs. We would go out drinking because that's what you do when you're in the service. So you go out every weekend drinking, spend way too much money at the bar. Through the course of all that, he found out I had a wrestling background. He was like, have you ever thought about jiu-jitsu? And I was like, no, not really. And at that point in my life, the UFC was like, I knew what it was, but all I really saw was a bunch of guys with tribal tattoos and like bad haircuts and shitty attitudes. So I was like, it's a douche parade, you know? Like, I don't want to be a part of that. And he was like, nah, it's different, man. You gotta look a little deeper. There's actual martial artists in there. So after like, I don't know, I trained with him for like a year. Just me and him would go and roll or whatever. And then I went to Gracie Baja in San Pedro in Albuquerque. And at that specific school, there's Tusa, Freitas, Don Ortega, Wes King, and then Dave Binder. And between all those guys, there's like 11 world titles, jiu-jitsu world titles. So I didn't know what I was walking into. But I just, from day one, just gravitated towards it better than I ever did with wrestling. And I think being older, because I think I started when I was like 28, something like that. And started training probably around then at Gracie Baja School, which is like, they're super, super formal and everything's real structured and stuff. And there was no leg locks or anything like that. It was all really fundamental stuff, but I fell in love with it. And then from there, I was like, well, now I got to learn how to kickbox and stuff like that. So I went over to Jackson's for a year and trained there, and then came back to Gracie for another year. And then went and trained with Professor Ben Sandoval out of Club ABQ Jiu-Jitsu. He's a 10th Planet guy. He's just phenomenal. And through training with him, I started to figure out, well, I don't think I'm I would say I don't think I'm an orthodox jiu-jitsu guy. So my game really started to develop and gravitate more towards this kind of outlandish, flashy shit that you don't really see common, or like a lot of people don't do, like cartwheel passes and shit like that. So
you're funky with it?
Yeah. Whatever it takes, man. I think outside the box, because I mean, it goes back to what you're saying about being a smaller guy. And size-wise, everybody that I train with or might get into a physical altercation with is probably going to be bigger than me. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have something to give me an edge. And whether that be leg locks or a cartwheel pass or flying guillotines and all kinds of shit like that, like gotta be comfortable doing all those things. So that's why I train that way. And
Sure.
now my game has like turned into some kind of weird mixture of wrestling and leg locks, and it's like Sambo almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I really think a highly skilled high school wrestler, like in high school, you don't even have to be state champ. Just make it to the dance. You don't have to be a national champion wrestler. Just make it to the dance. If you're on that level to where
Yeah.
you're wrestling for those titles, I think you could smoke out a blue belt. I really do.
There's a good chance. So when I was wrestling in high school and college, I was not like anything special. Well, first of all, I wrestle in Ohio, and if you know anything about high school wrestling, Ohio is a meat grinder. It's just horrible. Like there's just studs here, like
Mm-hmm.
monsters. Ohio
There's
State,
certain states that I don't
yeah,
mess with, and it's
Ohio,
Iowa, Ohio.
Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
Iowa, New Jersey, stuff like that. Like anywhere in the Midwest, pretty much, you're gonna run
yeah.
into some tough
OSU for
dudes.
Oklahoma.
Yep.
Yeah, scary, scary, scary
But like,
areas.
I didn't go to state or anything. I went to districts. I was a match away from state, and then in college I wrestled NAIA for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
It just never really clicked for me until I was in my late 20s. Like, hey, I'm not. There's no reason I can't be as good as any of these other guys. Like, just be aggressive and assert yourself and impose your will on somebody. That's the whole idea behind wrestling.
Sure.
And that never really clicked in my head till I was older. But better late than never, right?
Yeah, no, for sure, man. Do you remember the TV show for Jason Mayhem Miller called Bully Beatdown?
Yeah.
You remember that? Like, it may have been Russian. Let's just say he was Russian. Russians are scary, right? We're gonna agree with that. I think he was a Russian dude, right? And I think he was just like a bully. He was like a bodybuilder bully, and he ended up getting on Bully Beatdown. And I can't remember the guy he was fighting. God, for the life of me. But all he did is just turtled up.
Yeah.
And Bully wasn't able to do anything to him. Never submitted him.
Dang.
Never did anything to him. Just Google it. Put like Bully Beatdown, bodybuilder shuts fighter down. I guarantee you'll find it. And dude had no wrestling skills, no background in it. He was just a physically strong, imposing guy. And he was just able to fend off jiu-jitsu and wrestling like it wasn't real.
Those guys, so what happens with that is you have those kind of guys who are just, they seem to be impervious to stuff, right? But in my experience with those guys, because when I was in New Mexico, we would have pararescue and guys come into the Gracie Baja School. Pararescue is an Air Force special operations career field. Like they jump into combat zones and do medic stuff while killing people. They're badasses. And they're all like, they get paid to work out. That's what they do. They're just jacked, shredded dudes. And they would think because they can shoot and apply a tourniquet and an IV, they can fight. So they would come in.
Man, that's that mistake we're talking about for men.
It relates right back to what you were saying. They would come in and they're very strong and they're in very good shape, right? But eventually that starts to wear out and they fade. And as they fade, that's when the openings start coming. Now, when you look at Bully Beatdown, the bully's got the fighter's got like 5 minutes to work on that guy. But in a real fight or a different situation, you don't have a time limit. And eventually your strength is going to fade, right? That's why you roll 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds every time you go train, because you want those last rounds to see if you can maintain your technique when you're tired. It's when we get tired that everything starts to break down. That's when it really shows how hard you've been training and how well you'll maintain.
You know what's crazy about training? You may not have experienced this. I did not wrestle in high school. I got it wasn't a fight. I don't know what it was. This wrestler in high school was, I don't know. I don't want to throw the word PC. I used to say bully, but people say that too much these days. Like, I was bullied.
It's almost losing its effect.
Yeah, I know, man. I don't know. He was just being a jerk one day in school, and I was sitting in front of him, and he jumped up from the desk behind me, never saw him coming, and he put me in like a headlock, right? And he just wouldn't let go. That was it. we were in ninth grade.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember how strong he felt. Still to this day, I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't break it. I didn't know how to do it. At the time, I didn't do martial arts. I didn't do anything. I just waited it out. He wasn't choking me. He just had me in a headlock and was squeezing the crap out of me. And I remember feeling like his body against my body. And I was like, why does he feel like he's made of oak? Like he's like made of a kitchen table. Like, why is he so strong? And he let go. It felt like 20 or 30 seconds later, probably 5 to 8 seconds, right? Long enough.
Yeah.
And I remember just feeling like I can't do anything about it. He was small. He was probably 5'4", 5'5", 5'6", and I was big already. And everybody in the class was like, "Oh, you couldn't do anything about it," and I couldn't say anything. Like, my only defense was I didn't see it coming, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing my own work. Like, this kid just jerks me up, right?
That's totally legitimate though. He jumped on you and you weren't ready. That's
at all.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
Thanks a lot, Brian Tipton. I know you're watching.
Yeah, fuck you, Brian.
Yeah. So, but still to this day, I remember how I felt like I better learn something because these dudes are just physically imposing. And now I'm going to start stepping into 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and these dudes are like beating each other up.
Yep.
And that's, I think, my first moment I realized, like, I got to learn how to fight.
Yeah.
And, look, you trained at the Baja in Albuquerque through, my Portuguese is off. Barata? Isn't that his name?
Yeah, Rafael.
Yeah, Rafael. So
Rafael.
I had a podcast years ago for MMA, and Rafael was one of my guests that I had on the podcast. Cool dude. I liked him. He always invited me out. I used to work in Albuquerque, and I would come through every blue moon and spend like a week or two, and he would always invite me out like, hey, man, you got free lessons on me. I never got to take him up on it, never got to go back to Albuquerque, but I definitely would. Was he a cool dude? That's all I'm trying to get out of this.
Oh, he's like the nicest guy, dude. He's hilarious.
Dang. He seemed like it.
He's a super nice guy, super friendly, really upbeat, really positive all the time. He was actually on The Ultimate Fighter one of the seasons.
The Barata Plata.
Lost the fight to get into the house, but I mean, just a great guy all around.
And he was friends with Brandao. What, Diego Brandao?
Yeah.
Who just seems like a juiced up, angry.
Diego's actually really cool too.
Is he?
All those guys that train over at Jackson
that's cool.
would come in and stuff.
I'm glad you said that.
Like Carlos Condit would be in there. Cowboy was in there a couple times. John Jones, of course. Holly Holm, Jody Escabel. You walk into their no-gi classes on like Friday or Saturday. I don't know when they do them anymore. It's been a couple years since I've been there, but it's like I recognize all these people. I've seen them fight before. These are certified killers in here.
Yeah.
And there are normal guys in there, blue belts and purple belts, just rolling with them. It's crazy.
I'm glad you said that about Diego because I've always had that chip on my shoulder. Like I didn't like him because he's so aggressive. I'm like, this dude's juiced up.
It's Diego Sanchez.
Yeah.
When you meet him, like you would think, because like the way he fights, he gets so pumped up and he's so aggressive and he fights with so much fire. But like outside of the cage, he's just a normal dude. He just turns it on. It's like a switch.
So let's wrap up. We're going to hit about 30 minutes. I'm going to talk about the John Jones thing since you brought him up. Do you know John Jones?
I don't know John Jones. I've met him a couple times. He would obviously be out partying in Albuquerque, and we would see him at some of the clubs we would go to, and I'd go up and like shake his hand, say hi, champ, how are you? But this was like before anybody knew anything about how he was acting. Like we would just see him out. And he seemed like a nice enough guy. Like person to person, he's not like mean or rude or anything. He was always real nice to me whenever I would say hi. And I'm sure he has like no idea who I am, of course, because I'm just some random white kid. But like,
Yeah.
he'd always shake hands, or if people wanted to take a picture, whatever. So we would see him out and about, but like, I don't know him, I guess.
Yeah. So you didn't ever roll with him. You were never training with him
I never got the chance to roll with John. That would have been an interesting experience.
because he's so long, right? I
He's
mean, he's
so
lanky,
big.
and he's
He just,
unorthodox with his
yeah,
submissions.
and he just
Um,
has like a skill for it, like a knack for it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, choked out Leoto. He choked out Rampage. I mean, just he survived a submission attempt from Belfort and then submitted
And then he
Belfort.
got, but yeah, with a nasty Kimura.
What the crap? What I wanted to get into the Bones Jones with you is there's one place you and I disagree, and I'm coming from an out of shape dude from Oklahoma. You can call that Midwest, South, whatever you want to call it. I don't mind the steroids, but I'm not competing against anybody. I'm not competing against anybody. And I listened to your discussion on it the other day, and I was like, what is this problem with steroids? Like, look, if you came to me today and said, hey, Tiger, I got some steroids for you. We're going to cut you up. We're going to lean you out. You're going to get buff. Like, hey, Jeremiah, I'll send you my address. But I'm also not competing. I'm also not trying to choke you, right? Who's not doing steroids. So you kind of opened my eyes on that because I was like, if you want to juice up. Like Tito, Chuck, Vanderlei, Vitor, if there was a Pastor Prime League where it was going to be pride rules and everyone was going to juice, let's go. Like,
hell yeah.
If that's right, take my money right now. Like, I will watch all those dudes fight over and over and over.
You're 100% right.
And then
I think they call it Ryzen now.
Yeah, right. If those dudes get in there and they'll fight, I will become a huge Ryzen fan. But I listened to your rant the other day, and it did kind of make me realize, like, maybe it's not cool if you're in a jiu-jitsu tournament or a wrestling tournament in high school with dudes who aren't doing it. And they're just the difference when Brian was on me. I'll never forget it. I was ninth grade. I'm 35 years old. I'll never forget how strong he was and so much smaller than me. And I couldn't do anything about it. I'm 35 and I'm still reliving it as I tell you. Maybe those are your memories in high school whenever you were like, what school you were at. You're kind of calling some dudes out on the show. Who you were that were doing steroids. You're right. In competition, it's just not fair. But baseball, let them juice up.
Yeah,
hit the baseball.
Yeah, 100%, dude. 100%.
You're not hurting anybody.
Let the baseball players do all the steroids. I want to see home runs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to see 120-mile-an-hour fastball.
Yeah, me too. Come on, Randy Johnson.
Fuck yeah. But when it comes to, I guess when it comes down to it, if the league has determined that something is a banned substance, like, you shouldn't do it. And that's the way I view it. If the rules say don't do this, then you shouldn't do this. But at the same time, like, I got to disagree with the rules sometimes because they suspended Nick Diaz for years for weed. It's like, so I'm torn. I'm just like you. Like, I want to see TRT Vitor. That's what I want to see. Amazing,
me too.
right? But
Me
at
too.
the same time, I can't grant legitimacy to John Jones's second victory over DC because he popped hot. Like, it's a weird, like, back and forth that I do, and I really need to pick a side, actually.
But how dope is it when you see that? You see a guy beat DC the first time. Wasn't it a decision?
Yeah.
The second time, he head kicked him out of there.
Yeah.
Okay, now go back to TRT Vitor. He kicked Bisbing's eye out of
his head.
Like, it's gone, man. Did you see him on his podcast pull his eye?
Yeah, he pulled his eye out.
Thanks, Vitor.
Fucking.
But that's the difference in these dudes. These dudes are beasts.
Mike Bisping is a badass because he has, like, he might be the most badass guy on the planet now because he has one eye, and he just pulls it out. But
he fought after that.
Yeah,
he was lying to commissions, lying to us, right, fans? He don't owe us anything.
Yeah,
but he's and then competing and beating people
at the highest level possible.
It's insane. What's a really good looking guy?
Title after that.
Yeah, from the Jeremiah of the UFC. What is his name? He's no joke. He's bodied up, handsome as all get out.
He beat Rockhold, didn't he?
Luke Rockhold.
Yeah.
With one eye.
With one eye.
I got two good eyes. I'm perfectly healthy, and I can't put any smoke on Luke Rockhold.
Oh, hell
he did
no.
it with one eye and smaller.
Yeah.
He's smaller than Rockhold. Listen, my wife is a UFC fan because, yeah, for sure. My wife got
the luckiest dude ever.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, do you remember when he got beat by Rashad Evans? Bisping? Years ago, early in his career.
Yeah.
And right then, look, I'm a huge Rashad fan. Rashad was from Niagara, New York. I was from Syracuse, so I kind of just a little bit of, right? He's from state, right? A couple hours away. And when he lost that fight, I was like, oh, he'll never make it. And I always thought of Bisping as kind of a gatekeeper. And then he would win some really awesome fights. He's like the Dallas Cowboys. He's like the Nick Diaz. He would win fights that you think he's going to lose, and he would lose fights that you think he's going to win.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking. But my wife would always say she doesn't like Bisping as a person. She didn't like who his persona was in sports. But she's like him or not, he was talented. He's amazing. Yep. He's an amazing,
tough
amazing.
As shit.
Dude, for real.
If Dan Henderson had punched me like that, I would have never got up. That was it. That's the end of me.
Again, that's a fear of mine. That punch would have just shut me down for the rest of my life.
I think that, and we'll end on this because, I'm sure you got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. But the fear that we started off you started off talking about that. The fear, everybody has it, and the problem is that almost 100% of men won't admit that they're afraid of things because it makes you seem weak, right? But realistically, fear is what will keep you alive. The reason we faint and set things up and fake and do all these things is because we are afraid of eating the damage or potential damage that could come from someone striking us. Mm-hmm. So fear is what will keep you moving. It will keep you alive. If you are afraid of getting choked or punched in the face, you're going to get out of the way or you're going to defend. I mean, you can call it what you want, but it's all fear-based.
100%. Look, Brian Tipton, today you're not side headlocking me. I'm getting out of it. Now, whatever happens past that, he still may beat me up. I don't know. Maybe he went on to do crazy things. He's in the military. He's in Alaska. I'm in Oklahoma, so I can talk all the smack I want. So
thanks for your service, Brian, you piece of shit.
Yeah. So I knew we would become best friends on this show. So, man, listen, I will let you go. I know you got kids to get to. I've got 2 sleeping babies, and the oldest one is in Tulsa, but my oldest boy is in the other room. So I'm going to get in there and tackle him, but I'm going to get the show up today. I appreciate the heck out of you coming on. I would really like to get you coming on monthly if you could commit to something like that. I'd like to we didn't even scratch the surface, and we're 33 minutes in to UFC talks. Hey, lastly, real quick, because this will be topical today. Damian Maia submitted Ben Askren 3rd round rear naked choke. Thoughts?
Jiu-Jitsu. Maia's he's a whole nother animal. So Askren's been fighting people mainly that don't have nearly as deep of jiu-jitsu backgrounds as Damian Maia. When you get to that level, it doesn't matter if you're wrestling or doing jiu-jitsu. He can grapple with anybody. If you could take Damian Maia and put him on a mat with Jordan Burroughs and be like, go to town, and he's still going to hang in there. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just,
he's hung in there with Marcelo Garcia, right?
Yeah. Maia's a monster, and people so there's actually a video of Marcelo rolling with Ben Askren, and Marcelo rolls him into a ball.
He's joking around with him and killing him.
He's fucking around with Ben Askren, who's one of the best MMA wrestlers we've ever seen. And then Maia has rolled with the best of them. And people kind of tend to downplay his jiu-jitsu, but he's a freak.
Super skilled. And the Diaz fight is back on, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, buddy.
Oh, God. Thank the MMA gods.
Thank the gods.
Dude, I was heartbroken. I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm going to figure out how to stop recording and let us go. But yesterday, I made this super dope video, and it was just clickbait. That's all it was. I did a clickbait video, and I was saying what Diaz, the only thing, look at it, take his shirt off and look at him, like Chael Sonnen said, right? I said EPO. And I was going to put Nate Diaz is on EPO because they do the triathlons. They do all this.
Yeah.
I had the whole thing. And then at the end, I come out and I say, it's clickbait. He's clean. Neither Diaz brother would do it. So the whole thing was clickbait. At the end, I say, shame on you for watching this video because it's clickbait. Dude, I lost the video.
Oh, no.
Oh, man. It would have been so dope. But it was shame on you for watching.
Give me your predictions. Masvidal, Diaz. Who takes it?
What do I want to happen, or what do I think is going to happen?
Gotta tell me what's gonna happen, not what you want to happen.
You know what? Diaz split decision.
Split decision. I like it. I'm gonna go with Masvidal. It's hard to. I'm going to give Masvidal a stoppage. Masvidal stops Nate Diaz in the third round.
Referee stoppage, or is it Nick throwing in the towel again? Like
I'm going to say TKO. Referee stoppage. Masvidal's just he hit another level, dude. He hit another level. He's explosive, and I think it's too much for Nate to deal with.
I love it. I love it. Listen, neither one of those guys are going to back up. Neither one of those guys are scared of each other. They're as street as it gets.
Street Jesus.
Street Jesus. I'm telling you, man. I know whenever you said some men or all men have that fear, I think 1 in a million don't. And I think we found that 1 in a million twice with those two dudes.
You're probably right.
They're not afraid of each other. If I had to fight you, I'd be afraid. These two are not afraid to fight each other, and they're the top of the killers in the world, man.
I don't think you're right. There are some men who are outliers. Typically, when I say shit like that, I'm generalizing horribly. But you're right.
Do you remember whenever Diaz said it was game over when he choked Conor in the street? You're dead.
Yeah,
it's dead. It was game over.
Yeah,
when you tap somebody out with a choke, it's dead.
Yeah,
it's not this. It's dead.
You're dead.
Coming up from human mankind to where we are today. Those dudes that got in those prehistoric battles, that was death. It was over. It was done.
Yes. No coming back.
And we play a sport. And you play a sport. These guys play a sport that is death every time. You tap it, it's rebirth, and you go again.
Hell yeah.
It terrifies me at 35. I cannot wait to watch this fight. What I want to happen, what my heart wants to happen is I want Diaz to be the bigger man, be the bully in the fight. There's that word again, right? We gotta take that power away from that word again. Nobody called each other bullies when we were growing up. But I want Diaz to bully him in the cage, somehow trip him because he doesn't have good wrestling. So somehow trip him, get him against the fence, take him down though. And I'd like him to see him tap Jorge out. Jorge does not have the ground game that Nate does because Nate's brother is Nick.
Yeah.
And if you roll with Nick, listen, I've always said Nate is the less version of Nick.
Yeah, 100%.
But I've always been like, oh, Nate lost to him, Nick would have beat him. Oh, Nate lost to him, Nick would have beat him. The problem is Nick is like party boying it up and living it up right now. And Nate's still in there throwing hands. So
Nate just wants to fight, man.
Dude, he's a beast. But yeah, awesome, man. Let's get our predictions. Post that fight. Let's do another video. We'll wrap that up. And, man, I still got to talk to you about your arms. I mean, you were, like, tatted up.
I got a couple.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that, man. Like, I'm just working on a half sleeve right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I got, like, stupid tattoos I've had forever. But, like, I'm just, now 35, I'm starting to work on it, right? So
it's a good time.
It's a good time, right? Yeah, right. So, yeah, man, I want to get into tattoos, get into, again, fatherhood with you, your life theories. I know it's public knowledge, so I'm not breaking any news if you follow you. You went through a pretty rough year, man. and
it
watching
was a rough one.
watching kind of the darkness kind of consume you, to the darkness rise, to, I don't know if you were getting help or you just figured this stuff out on your help, but you almost became like, you had a philosophy about yourself, man. And then now in your podcast, you talk about it. You talk about how to come through it, finding these holes in yourself, who you are. Like, dude, I want to talk about so much of this stuff with you. Like, we'll get into it.
Oh,
But I
hell
think
yeah,
it's
we
really
will.
cool, man. Yeah. So I think it's cool, man. Most people, when you meet them and you say, what are your flaws? Oh, I don't know. You know, they don't think they have any. And I'm the biggest Joe Rogan experience proponent. And since him, I would say since I found his podcast, who I am and who I was then are completely different, because I realized that you have to look at yourself.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and like those chicks on your dating apps that you talk about on your podcast. Again, not blowing up your spot here, but they tell you that you shouldn't have such high hopes for yourself, or you shouldn't be cocky and believe in yourself. And when I hear that and I hear your responses to it, I'm like, oh, he's 100% right.
Oh,
Like you can't cater your thoughts, emotions, and feelings to cater to someone else. But dude, that's a whole nother time. I can't wait to get into it with you. Thanks for coming on the show
just a
today.
Disclaimer: I am not on those sites anymore.
Yeah. Too late, ladies. Too late, ladies. Awesome, man. Well, let me see if I can get this bad boy to stop. All right, Jeremiah, anything else you want to say?
No. Thanks for having me on. We'll do it again. This was a
Plug
blast.
your podcast. Where can you find it?
Apple Podcasts. You can find us, The Handsome Savage. I do an episode Monday through Friday.
Awesome.